Well, good morning. It is a good morning. Hope you're doing well. So, I felt a little impulsive this morning. I got up a little earlier than I planned to be today, and I made my rounds through YouTube and looked at the folks that I like to follow and see what they posted and see what their latest updated social media post would be. And I came across one of the guys I follow who I'm rooting for. A lot of you don't understand why, but he was the inspiration behind this discussion today. Now, right away, let me preface it by saying this is the kind of thing that the millennials, to have it right now, give it to me, I demand it, you owe it to me, and make it real easy, and I don't want to have to put any effort into it. This is the kind of topic or discussion that you're not going to like because it's going to require you to do some personal inventory. It's also going to put limitations on where you're placing your focus, what you should be doing, how you should be thinking. And the millennial mindset is don't tell me how to think. I'll learn how to do that on social media. So in trading and investing, you're entering an arena where the sharpest minds in the world are out here trying to cannibalize one another. And if you come in with a very limited perspective on how the markets are going to behave, how you are going to engage in these marketplaces, you're going to have your clock cleaned, okay, very efficiently and expediently. And it will be sudden, and you won't feel like anyone can be profitable or anyone can trade. And I've seen that over the years as an educator, coming in contact with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different cultural divides, and largely the repeating phenomenon is that the lack of personal responsibility and also the disproportionate level of what is realistic versus what's being promoted largely on social media. So I want to talk a little bit, and I probably will be about an hour or less today. So I'm on schedule, so I have to make sure I stay on that time frame. It's around the holidays, and it's something I'm trying to squeeze in on my personal time. Usually I do these types of things, or did these things. I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I would do Twitter Spaces. And I wanted to kind of encourage you, because we're ending in 2023. A lot of you have learned a great deal of new things on the YouTube channel. You've learned a lot of things about trading. Maybe you've discovered a lot of things about yourself. Maybe you found a model. Maybe you found the beginning footings, if you will, of a progress that you want to see increase and move forward. And I'm trying to encourage you to do that today. But also I want to remind you some of the things that I met coming up, and also what I see a lot of traders and a lot of influencers / traders and a lot of YouTubers that pretend to be traders, those pitfalls they're falling victim to. And admittedly, I have reached out to them both publicly and privately to try to encourage them to do things a little bit differently. And I understand some people just don't want to take advice, especially some of them not wanting to receive it from me. But that's it's misfortunate for both of us, because I'd like to see these individuals improve, and I see them at a position of stagnant development. The chart will not change in this discussion, by the way, so your screen's not frozen. There will be a list of things here, and I'll show you the first one. The first pitfall and plague of trading well is unrealistic expectations or results that you think that you have to have. Okay? And before I say anything more, just let me say this. We are in a performance-oriented industry. It's all about the results. Okay? Whose results matter? Yours. Not mine, not the people that you follow, not the people that you're trying to learn from, not the people you pocket watch on social media. This person has the better car. This person has the better house. This person has the better trading setup, the better monitor array, the better trading desk, the better whatever. Okay? All of those things do nothing to put money in your pocket or add to your bottom line on your account. Now, that's not to say you can't be entertained by those types of things, but unfortunately, the state of the world today is they equate that to being equivalent to, well, I can be like them and I want to be successful so I can do those things, versus I want to learn how to trade so I don't have to go to work. I want to have a profitable trading endeavor so that way I can operate like a business and be an entrepreneur and have the benefits of living a better lifestyle. And that's not being rich. Okay, that's not being promised to you here. But another stream of income that you can feel confident that you're going to be able to do this in perpetuity without the necessity of you going to punch a time clock or leaning on the salary that a boss says that this is what you're worth to me. That's not guaranteed to you next year in 2024. That could change. So when we look at people, and I'm going to lump myself into this, okay, for all fairness, I share a lot of examples that many of you sometimes say in my comment section. You did it a lot on Twitter too. Not all of you are guilty of this, but I'm of the opinion that it's the majority. I know that sometimes I'm executing with models that I have not fully revealed, or entry mechanisms or things like that. And invariably, I'll see people say, I took the exact same trade. You're lying to yourself. I don't believe you. And those types of things are not going to help you as a trader, because what you're doing is you're saying to yourself in a comment to me that I'm not believing. Now, if you show, this is my example, and I have students that do this. They'll record themselves in engaging price, managing it, and I reached out to a person that just recently the other day did almost the same trade that I did, and I gave him a call out on my community tab. He's over on Twitter. Just look at that name, look at all the recent tweets towards me. Now, I'm not active on Twitter, but that person did exactly as close as you can to what I did in terms of trying to trade the market. Was it exact same fill? No. Was it exact same targets? No. But the same premise. What was he employing? What he learned. Okay? What he learned. So, unrealistic results are assuming that you're going to have the same entries, the same targets, the same everything about my trade. When you don't hit that, it will be frustrating. And you'll start doing other things because that impulsiveness will rise up in you. And you're going to know in the deepest part of you that you can't do what I'm doing yet. Not that you can't, but you can't do it yet. So then you start pushing a button to see, well, let me entertain myself because I don't feel well about what I think I should be able to do because I've watched a lot of these videos. Therefore, it means I should know how to do it. When you haven't practiced it, you haven't studied it, you haven't put chart time in, you haven't logged anything. And those things, they will equate to and deliver you the results that you're looking for. But just simply watching videos, that doesn't do it. Watching videos without taking notes doesn't do it. So having unrealistic results in mind, meaning watching things like a Robbins Cup performance next year, or watching what the historical returns have been, and thinking that you're going to walk out there in your trading, not necessarily entering the competition, but trading with that level of return. Every one of those individuals out there today, if you go look at it, in any one of those divisions, they're all respectable returns. They're not to be diminished. I'm not trying to say that they're not good returns. They're great returns. If you're making 100% return on your money in a year, and granted, there are a lot of you that are my students. There's a lot of you that don't even trade the way I trade. And you can do better than 100% return in a year. So Please put your ego aside, because we're not out here trying to measure up anything. I'm trying to focus on the students or traders that are trying to accomplish consistency, and the things that they may or may not have identified are problematic barriers that they're either going to have to overcome or will eventually become a factor in their development, and how to get around those types of things, at least how I did it, and how I actively teach my own students and my own children. And I'll talk about my son Cameron, who's wrestling with a lot of things as well. So you have to be realistic about this, okay? And watching someone that's been doing it for a very long time, and assuming that you're going to watch a few videos that you would maybe have been following me for a number of years, and then thinking, well, I should be able to do what you're doing, when none of you would be expected to be able to trade like that. I would never have that expectation of you. Years down the road, you will. But just simply because you went through a video series, watched a couple of videos, and maybe you looked at some old charts, or maybe watching some of my executions, you might feel an affinity for wanting to trade like this, but don't assume for a moment that it's realistic for you to expect yourself to be able to walk out in 2024 and trade like that. So when you see your favorite YouTuber, your favorite online personality, and me in that list as well, our results are unique to us. You don't know what we're wrestling with at the time. You don't know what things are factors that are really plaguing us behind the scenes while in a trade. You don't know if we feel good about the leverage that we've put on or not. There's been several instances where I have shown executions this week, and when I moved my stop because of personal schedules, I want to be able to share something with you, and I moved the stop a little bit more aggressive than I would normally do if I wasn't trying to meet a time scheduled event, like my son going to the dentist, like my wife saying, hey, we got to get the tree up, we got to do this, we got to get new sets of this for something around the house, because I am a family person as well. I have a family, I have a wife, I have a honey to do or honey-do list that she likes to throw at me. These are all things that you as a person are going to have to manage in your trading as well. And while you're learning how to do this, if you ever went to uni, if you've been a college student, whatnot, those types of things, you had to balance that as well. You had to work your job if you had to keep a job, study, do all those things, and it's a lot on your plate. And it's important that you realize that no one's holding you to an unrealistic expectation of yourself except for you. You're doing that. And don't allow other people to inflate what you should be viewing as realistic results. And what is a realistic result? To me, if you can make 2% a week, that's phenomenal. Now, obviously, that's way below someone that's been trading for a long time. That's really nothing in terms of the grand scheme of things. But we're talking about where you are right now. The lack of consistency, or the trader student that is unable to find their way in consistency. Where should you aim? Finding yourself in the realm of 2% positive on the week. That is not a high water mark where you can't reach it. It is absolutely obtainable. And you can do it risking 0.25%. Now, that's not sexy. That's not in vogue right now. That's not a popular thing to be risking that little, because in your mindset, you're thinking, I can't get rich risking so little. I got to risk big money. That's a lie. The people that say that are not profitable anyway. In their mind, that tells you that, number one, they're mathematically challenged. They have no understanding of compound interest. They have no consistency in modeling a trading plan. They have no idea what they're looking for. They have no faith in what they're looking for is going to repeat just about every single day. And because creatures of habit, that's what humans are, if you follow or fly with a flock of birds, okay, that has a specific mindset, you will adopt that mindset, even if it is toxic, because you're going to try to fit in. And social media kind of captivates these individuals where they feel like they're included in something, and you don't want to include yourself into a community mindset that is unrealistic, having astronomical rates of return. While that's wonderful and it should be an aspiration over a long career, walking out in your first few years as a fledgling, as a trader, it's going to sound like a buzzkill, but really it's not practical. And I fell victim to that when I first started. I felt like it was something that, that's going to tell me I'm doing the right thing, making lots of money, doing it correctly, with lots of percentage return, never losing. That's an unrealistic expectation as well. And I forced myself. I was actually talking to my private mentorship students, and I said I was forcing myself to trade in conditions that I don't generally want to trade in. And you've seen me get stopped out. You've watched me get stopped out and have to re-enter using the rules that I teach. I traded in settings that I would not risk real money in. And the questions that are coming up in the comment section, why are you doing it? Because I'm showing you why I practice what I preach. Can I get it right sometimes? Yes, but is that enough reason for me to go out there and trade in front of the CPI? No. Is it enough reason for me to trade in front of the FOMC? No. Is it something I should be trading on a Thursday and Friday of non-farm payroll? No. Can I? Yes. Can I get fortunate enough to have a setup fall in my favor? Yes. But that doesn't entice me to do it as a steady diet every single month, because my precision, my accuracy, my trade management is greatly hindered by the level of volatility and uncertainty that is caused around those types of days. So I don't need to go out on social media to do those things to prove that my concepts or that I can trade or anybody else can learn this and have it transferable knowledge. I don't need to do those things, but because I want to close this year out with other things and talk about it in a manner where, hey, look, you can see those examples and think to yourself, wow, that's really good. To me, when I look at this, I look at it as, I know it's entertaining for you, but I don't want you to look at it and say, well, I want to trade like you and do that, because that's not what this is about. There's been several times this year, and in my private mentorship, they will vouch for this too, I'm rarely accurate in my expectation of front of the CPI number. I've said it many times in Twitter Spaces. I've said it many times in this YouTube channel. And I'm rarely accurate in terms of what I think the CPI is going to do before it does it. So if I had a model, if I had an approach that could take advantage of that, then clearly I'd be in there doing every single month when it's available. I'd be in there, fleecing it every single opportunity. But because I've seen enough to know that that's not realistic for me to know in advance with a great deal of consistency what that report's going to do, much like the non-farm payroll, I can have a schematic in mind where I think that this is what the price is going to do. It's going to behave this way. It's going to attack this liquidity first and then go here. But you know what that is? It's the equivalent of the same thing that a football team's head coach does when they're at the Super Bowl. They have a playbook. But how many times is the other team that didn't win looking at that playbook saying, but I had it all figured out beforehand? If the players just would have did this, if the candlesticks would have just did what they were supposed to do. That's unrealistic thinking. Those are unrealistic results. I know that these markets are going to be even more manipulated in a degree where I can't participate and trust that my concepts, my models are going to perform as efficiently as they would if they're not in those particular settings. Any given day of the week, apart from the things I've mentioned here, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to find something that I'm going to be able to take home. Now, me being your mentor and you saying I'm a student of you and I believe in your concepts, that doesn't equate to you being on the level, knowing how to do it yet. So don't blur that line. And some of you get very, this is where it becomes, admittedly, it's cult-like, because anything that gets popular and it feels like you want to be a part of it and it's able to do things that something different, people want to plug into that, and it gives them an identity. You're stronger than that. You don't need to identify with me. You don't need to identify with my concepts. It doesn't mean you can't employ them. It doesn't mean that it can't be a basis for you to be trading. But so many of you are just trying to be part of something that's not required for you to be profitable, meaning the carnival-like atmosphere. I love the camaraderie and the tight-knit feeling of our community, but many of you go on the defensive when you don't need to, and that's an unrealistic result as well. You can't worry about defending me. You can't worry about defending my concept. They do it all by themselves, okay? I don't need anybody to defend me or how I trade. Your focus should be primarily on you. What are you doing today that's leading you to being better than you were yesterday, last week, last month, last quarter, last year? And are you logging that? You have to be journaling. If you're not journaling, that's an unrealistic result. You have no baseline measurement. You have no way of being able to judge, are you really seeing progress? Because if you go by a gut feeling, I feel better about getting in trade, that's nothing. That's nothing. Some of those executions I did and shared with you this week and last, once I got into the trade, I was like, I wish I wouldn't have got in this trade now. I wish I would have waited on another move and even got in at a higher price, even though I was bullish. Even though I got in at a lower price, I didn't like where I was in certain parts of those executions. But I was there, and that's exactly what it's like for you when you get into the real world, where you're trading with real money. You're going to push a button. And now what do? If you don't feel so warmed up to the idea that you've placed yourself correctly? You either have to manage yourself through that trade or kill it and then go in a better place where you feel sound, you feel comfortable. And books don't talk about these types of things. Other teachers, they don't talk about those things. It's something that you're going to encounter, but when you sugarcoat it and you put blinders on, you say, well, I didn't really do anything wrong here because the trade did eventually pan out. Well, that's not accurate. You have to identify what caused you the uncomfortable state of mind. I've been listening to the Top Step YouTube channel. Those guys over there, they used to trade on the floor. And I absolutely love listening to their stories. I love listening to their banter. And I like using their chat window for sentiment because it's a wonderful way of being able to see, overbought, oversold, when capitulation's there, when I can fade that type of thing. And please don't be put off by that, because they're doing the same thing. When they talk about their tilt, that's a sentiment indicator. All of you are going to want to use that. And all I'm doing is using the real-time sentiment indicators that the commentary of these participants in that chat window and other YouTubers I like to listen to. I'm not there to learn how to trade. I'm there for the community aspect of listening to them talk about how it was for them on the floor. I love hearing. I wish they would do more of that. I wish they would do more of that. I started when that was still a way of trading. We're dinosaurs. That way of trading is gone. It'll never be like that again. And when I heard one of the gentlemen talk about how they had traded, and while they did well enough to come out in a profit, he said, I don't like it, and even though I was profitable, I don't feel I did well today. You know what that is? That's not beating yourself up. That's reality. And that's exactly what all of you need to do. You can't just say, well, I pushed a button, I want to hope and a prayer. It worked out in my favor, so therefore it's skill, baby. Look at me. Watch me shine. I have a great deal of respect for that. I have a great deal of respect for any trader that says, you know what, this worked out in my favor, but really it was just a state of me being fortunate enough to see it come out in my favor. It had nothing to do with skill, because if I was being honest with you, I wish I wouldn't have taken that very trade there. Are you equipped to critique yourself that way, where it's not, you're not beating yourself up. You're not undermining the mindset that you're going to need to tap into. You're not trying to belittle yourself. You're not trying to shame yourself, but you're holding yourself to accountability. And that's a very, very hard line to walk as a human being, let alone placing it on the measurement of making money or losing and equating that to failure or successfulness. And you can't do that in trading, because you can be successful and still just taking very small losses, or getting into a trade and saying, oh, well, I thought I saw something here, but it really isn't there. And if I hold on to it, really what I'm doing is I'm gambling, because I don't feel confident about that setup. And I'm not going to wrestle and arm wrestle myself and say, well, if I get out, I know it's going to run and I'm going to regret that. No. A professional mindset doesn't think like that. You know who thinks like that? A gambler. You know, this slot machine is cold. I've been putting money on it for 2-3 hours. It ain't paying out nothing. But I know as soon as I get up, Larry over there in the corner who's eating dial it back, ICT. Slow down. Slow down. Someone else is going to slide on in when you get up, and you know what they're going to do. They're going to put enough money in, the ratio will be met, and then the machine will pay out. And you'll say, I knew I was right if I just would have. Well, you can't do that in trading. You can't have a slot machine mentality, because if you're gaining the experience, learning how to navigate these markets, knowing what you're looking for, if that's not there for your trade, everything's not saying this is really what you should be in right now. You're all things are a go for this trade to be profitable. If those things are not, in fact, what's going on for your trade, then you need to kill it, or at the very minimum, take half the trade off and let experience guide you in the rest of it. But if you're honest with yourself right now, if we were in a conversation together, it was just the privacy of you and I talking, and I would say, hey, have you ever had this experience where you knew you shouldn't have been in the trade, but yet you're still in it? Wouldn't you feel uncomfortable saying it publicly? You would feel uncomfortable, because you're equating it to, well, it's not something that people should blame. They shouldn't blame me for it. They shouldn't have any harsh criticism because I'm trading. I'm doing more than you. And I was willing to hold on to the trade, even though I knew it was not likely to be profitable. I was able to hold on to it, so therefore it makes me stronger. No, it makes you a gambler. It makes you a gambler. It makes you hold on to emotional stimuli for fear of feeling an emotional stimuli at a later time that was going to be regretful. Because if you're right, and you hold on to it, you're going to call that skill. And I'm here to tell you that's not skill. If you know your model's no longer in that setup, you're in there blind. You're like a sailboat in a storm with no rudder. Wherever the wind's going to carry you, that's where you're going to go. And if you make it to shore somewhere, you're going to call that port of destination where you intended to be. And that's a lie. That's a lie. So having realistic results, being comfortable with it, being content with it, aiming for a very low-hanging fruit objective. 2%, and if you're beginning, and if you're not really consistent, aim for 2% a week. I promise you, you can make a lot of money if that's all you ever do and you intend to trade the rest of your life. 2% per week does wonders. Does wonders. But see, you think it needs to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. You see these people getting these payouts in these funded account companies. How many times did they have to reset, and how many times did they blow out? That's the stat I would love to see when they put up their payout, leaderboard. Says, hey, This trader just took out $20,000. This trader just took a payout of $50,000. Here's how you make it really good. And it's encouragement, and it reminds the people that are trying to pursue that type of trading, say, okay, look, this person failed this many times. This is how many times this person tried to do a combine. This is how many times they got into a funded account and then lost it. And now this is where they're at. This is how long it took them. Then you would be able to tap into some real data, some real information that would really be helpful to you, because it isn't a flash in the pan overnight success. I know it wasn't for me, and I'm not saying that it can't happen for someone. Lightning strikes, it happens sometimes. But as a realistic expectation that everybody should expect it for themselves, that's not practical. And this isn't a popular talking point, but it's the very thing that you need to be reminded of. I'm just going to drop the name here because I think, if you listen to the person talking in the video that I'm going to mention here in a second, put aside all the things about the person and the personality and the things that they've said in the past and how they carry on and whatnot, because it's all, in my opinion, it's performance for entertainment purposes and to draw a crowd, which, I'm good at that. But when you listen to this person articulate the hardships that they're going through, that's the very reason why I watch this person, because I'm actively interested in seeing them overcome the very things that I'm talking about. And this isn't the first time I've talked about it with this person in mind. I want this person to succeed. I want this person to grow. I want this person to feel accomplished and overcome a lot of mental barriers and listen. Just listen and take the good advice and run with it. You don't even have to thank me. You don't have to go and say, I listened to you and it worked. Just listen and just do it, okay? But Patrick Whelan, he posted a video last night, and I watched it early this morning. And I posted a response, and it hasn't made its way to his comment section. And I noticed the other day I was in his chat window, and none of my posts were making it there. So apparently I made my way on his ban list, and I'm not sure why, but I've always been encouraging to him. But he posted a video, and this is the very type of video I like watching from him. Usually he's very flamboyant, very much of a braggart, and does a lot of talking, and it's great. He has a lot of showmanship. But he admitted where he was in his position of being in a funded account. He showed where he is financially, where he had this much and this is where he's at. He's losing. And I'm not encouraging you to go over there and talk any kind of smack. I'm not telling you to go over there and troll him. I'm telling you that that's the very thing that this industry needs. That type of stuff, where individuals come out and say, hey, this is hard. This is what I'm going through. This is what I got to work through. And yeah, I can make a lot of money, but then I end up losing it. And I don't know the answers yet. You do know the answers, Patrick. But what you're doing is what social media, YouTuber, Twitter, Instagram traders do is they're trying to be the biggest profitable person, the biggest profitable, the stand out from a crowd type person. And that's a big pitfall, because if you're always trying to be the gold medalist, unless you're Michael Phelps, a freak of nature, the chances of you being like that consistently, I mean, look at, he did a real good run of it, but did he do it again and again and again and again? No. It has a short lifespan. It looks great when it happens. It feels great. And the viewers that don't have experience, they think that, okay, you've done this, you need to keep doing it this way. If you don't do it this way, then you're a fraud. Then you can't trade. When it's the very factors that you're placing on yourself that are unrealistic, trying to live up to other people's expectations, you end up either trying to trade your P&L, which is you're trading your profit and loss equity curve, which should never be done, but 90% of the time, I'll just go out and say it's 99% of the time, especially with funded account traders. They freak out. They think that the losing trade they just took, or even if they hit maximum loss and they are forced to stop trading, that's the beginning and the end. So they might as well just recklessly trade the rest of it, and then start a brand new one. You're still met with the same problem. You have to get to the funded state. You have to get to a profitable state, and you have to be able to eventually withdraw money. Otherwise, why are you doing it? If you're not in this to trade and make money, and it's irrelevant what other people think is an amount of money that's significant or insignificant, it doesn't matter, because you're not going to give what you made in the market. You're not going to give that money to anyone. They're not going to spend your money, just the same way you're not going to spend theirs. But you're all pocket watching. I got people in the comment section saying, why don't you show us your real setups? I am. Why don't you do this live in front of us? I'm not going to do that, because I know many of you are reckless. You'll over leverage. You won't have the wherewithal to hold the stop where I place it, because you'll over leverage. You'll hurt yourself, and then you'll blame me. And I didn't do anything to do except for do what I'm doing right now. And or other people will do it, get credit from having an amazing trade pan out, and they'll be able to pretend that they can do what I'm doing, and they'll start mentorships and fleece people and take advantage of them. I don't need to do that. Just watch what I do on the Robin's Cup next year. That's all I'm going to say. Just watch what I do next year. Okay? That's all you got to worry about. You're going to have all the things to talk about next year. But having unrealistic expectations of yourself, especially if you're an influencer or trying to be an influencer or a YouTuber, the ones that I like are the ones that come out and say, you know what? These are the hardships I went through, and this is what I'm still wrestling with. You know what? That's someone to listen to. That's someone to listen to, because they're not hiding that part. They don't owe anything to you. They owe nothing to you, but they're being candid enough to say, hey, look, you see this. You see that I got paid out from this company. I took a withdrawal from my live account that's not a prop funded account. It's my actual trading. I showed you broker statements. I logged in and showed you 3 months of my trading, win, loss, everything. You're not obligated. I'm not obligated, rather, to share any of that. None of these individuals on YouTube or on social media are obligated to show you anything. But this expectation, this unrealistic expectation that everybody needs to sit down and prove to you, who is no one, Tom, Dick, and Harry, showing up from the position of anonymity, you owe me a full explanation of everything. I don't owe you shit. And neither does anybody else. And you coming up as a trader, you owe no one else anything. None of you are spending my money. None of you are sleeping in my house. You're not going to drive in my cars. You're not going to go on vacations with me. I'm not going to have presents with your name under my fucking tree. Okay? None of those things are going to happen. But in this world today, everybody expects everybody to give them stuff. Information, details, things that are not in any way, shape, or form realistic to be expected. If I was running, or if anyone else is running a signal service, then absolutely, you better have something. Show me what you're doing. Then that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. But all of you are in a rush to be in a position where other people are going to demand information from you, details that you're not obligated to give. You're not obligated. You're absolutely not obligated. But the mindset today is, this is what it should be. And if you don't want to dance to the beat of my drum, then you're a fraud. Go fuck yourself. Okay? Go back here and second one, peer-driven performance. Now, I have a lot to do with this, because when I show examples, other people, they're intimidated by that, because they don't trade that way. They many times don't even use a stop loss, and they don't know where to do a partial. They don't know where the market's going to go, and they're just really just getting into a trade to find out what happens. And to me, that's, on a hope and a prayer type trading. They might be profitable because honestly, you can flip a quarter and trade heads and tails. And if you got really, really good risk management and you risk very little, you can make money. I wouldn't sleep at night trading like that, but you can make money. So if you feel like you are another person on social media, and you feel like because my community or maybe some of the things I say, if you listen to what I'm saying, I attack retail theology because it's flawed. It really is. I don't care what you're going to say about it in response. You're making money because you're a good risk manager, not because of Wyckoff, not because of supply and demand, not because of the Elliott wave. You're making money because of good risk management. That's all. Because none of that stuff makes the market go up or down. Buying and selling pressure, depth of market, DOM, market profile, all of that is horseshit. It's bullshit. But I know people, I know personally people that make lots of money and they attribute their success to that. But that stuff is in alignment when they're profitable with the things that I teach, which is the reality of the marketplace. The market's going to seek yield. It's going to run for inefficiency for the purposes of making that market efficiently delivered. That's a fair value gap, in other words. Or it's going to run for liquidity. That's it. That's all that's happening. And when it's not doing that, it's going to consolidate. That's it. There are going to be times when the market has a manual intervention. When are you going to see that? Interest rates, employment data, an unexpected geopolitical event, something wartime, something completely unexpected. And they'll go in, they'll do something where any one of us could lose money. And there's nothing that can be done to save you from that. That's the underlying inherent risk to the trading. And most of you are unaware that those types of things are going to happen. And you have to be aware of that. So when you're trading your account and you're trying to use the maximum leverage, okay, you're doing that with the expectation that you're going to have the best outcome. When I'm telling you as a trader, especially for folks that have not yet found consistency or profitability, that's the worst thing to do. That's the worst thing to do. Just because Top Step or any other company out there says you can trade with this number of contracts, that's not what a professionally minded trader will do. It's an IQ test. It's available. You can do that. Just like your acceleration pedal on your car says, yeah, it can be pressed all the way to the floor. If you hold it there long enough, your car will go as fast as it will go until it can't go further forward. By accident, by a lane change that is not accessible and you're going to hit a brick wall or something. Just because it can go fast, just because you can go 0 to 60 in a couple seconds, doesn't mean that you on the road that you're traveling on should be done. In your neighborhood, with your neighbors, with small children out there playing on their bicycles, just because your car can go 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds, is that efficiently done?